Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast. Before we get going, poor work intake equals out of control. Out of control means high stress, you get less done. It's not good. Mastering Work Intake by Jeremy Willets and Jon M Quigley is the path to bring order out of chaos. Buy a copy today, J. Ross Publishing or Amazon. The Software Process and Measurement Cast is on vacation for the next few weeks. Until then, we're revisiting some of the fabulous panel discussions we've had during the last 19 years. We'll be back on June 21st. We're looking forward to continuing the conversation. One of the fun parts of programming the Software Process and Measurement Cast is getting diverse groups of people together to chat. In this edition of the podcast, Jon Quigley, Jeremy Willets, Jeremy Berriault, Kevin Rush, Susan Parente, and myself convened to discuss what we learned about work in 2021. The last few years have been extraordinary, both good and bad. When you live in times like these, it's incumbent on all of us to learn from them. Are you ready to retrospect on what we learned working in 2021? It's time for the conversation. Kevin Rush, Jeremy Berriault, Susan Parente, Jeremy Willets, welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast.
Great to be here.
Great to be here.
Thanks for having us, Tom.
Excellent. So let's dive right in. 2021. It was almost like deja vu, right? 2020, 2021. Maybe since all of us are living through the end of 2021, we understand variance. Maybe 2021 was a variant of 2020 kind of thing. Oh, okay. That was probably not as good a joke as it was in my head. But there are probably things in 2021 that we want to keep. Many of us got together at the end of last year and we're talking about what we thought the world would be in terms of the workplace in 2021 and things that we had discovered, like being able to, go to Zoom meetings around the world and have all sorts of input that we wanted to keep in 2021. What is it that worked for you in 2021?
Well, I'll start out with that. So this is a really basic, simple thing, but I live outside the DC area. Most of the work I do is either in DC or in the New York City area, which includes New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. And I worked remotely on a federal contract in the DC area and did so from my home and didn't have to drive in. And that was awesome. And I also saw a lot of people move out to where I live full time because they were able to work remotely. People who lived in the DC area, people who lived in the New York area, moved to southern eastern Delaware, where I live. And that has been absolutely phenomenal. I love where I live, but the job market around here for doing project management, particularly IT consulting, is poor or just not even here. So working virtually has been something I've done for quite some time. And I also drive into client sites, but it's been amazing. I had a full-time job working remotely, worked with a team where cybersecurity contract. My team was anywhere from Maine to California and did so pretty seamlessly for our client in the DC area. Just really awesome.
Mr. Rush.
To piggyback on that, me personally, along with that, I'm not new to this. This would be more new to the game as far as like full-time work, but I made the jump to be remote full-time and actually kind of expand my experience portfolio by leaving the company that I was at and joining another one because I wanted to have more various experiences from various domains, various products. So that was a big jump for me. So now I'm 100% remote and figuring that out. Along with that, like kind of discovering stuff, I've discovered new ways to train people, train teams of teams, value streams and whatnot, using more online tools, typical stuff I was using before, but really trying to think through continue to like level the playing field as much as possible across the organization. And one thing that was nice was usually when I've always worked with companies that have one or two kind of electrons, remote people that are orbiting, which is very difficult and very challenging because they're always a second thought, no matter how much, effort you do to kind of either pair somebody with them like an avatar or whatever. It just so it's like defying gravity. But this is, in one sense, allowed you to level the playing field, or at least get the idea that we all need to level the playing field. So that's what I discovered that was valuable, using those tools and continue to collaborate online.
I like Kevin's point about leveling the playing field from a remote perspective. The company I work for now has obviously made the shift to being significantly remote over the past couple of years, and it's definitely helped me personally build a lot of connections with folks who I wouldn't normally have FaceTime with, folks who are overseas. I'm not going to be hopping on planes anytime soon to go see them in person. So being able to hop on calls with them, whether it's early in the morning or late in the evening, has been really refreshing to be able to get to meet them as people and to get to actually see them as people too, as opposed to just a voice that you hear on a conference telephone somewhere in your office early in the morning. Has been really refreshing and great.
Jeremy?
I just wanted to key off two things that Kevin said, and I know everybody wants to kind of answer the question, but it's just kind of interesting to hear. So first of all, I've been teaching people about working virtually, doing virtual project management for many years. And one of the things that I say is the most difficult is a hybrid virtual, where you have some people who are remote and most people who are not. And like you said, people get forgotten. So it's very interesting now that like everybody on the team's remote, that doesn't happen. And so I think there's something to be learned there in the future when people do go back to the office. I think there'll be an appreciation for people working remotely and bringing them in a way and not forgetting about them. There's just simple things like if you're on a conference call and you're in a room together, every now and then you interject and say, hey, anybody on the line have something to contribute? Is there anything that you want to share? If you hear somebody join the line, you stop the conversation and say, hey, who just joined? Actually, somebody once told me like that was interruptive. And I'm like, yeah, it's actually interruptive for them to join late, as it is for somebody to walk into the meeting room late. But you still have to acknowledge that they're there. Everybody needs to know who's on the call all the time, right? But the other part about it is I do a lot of training. And so my ability to train virtually not only made it easier for me to teach virtually, because I've been doing so for years, but I also was able to help other people make that leap, because it is very different to do an effective virtual training class than it is to do one in the classroom. It's a different skill set. I like both for different reasons. The logistics and convenience of teaching online is great. I do like people and I like being in front of people, but having to drive many hours and take all that time for travel, I don't like. It's interesting how those things show up. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share about that. So thank you, Kevin and Jeremy.
Without the tools, though, virtual is just telephone and conference calls, which is low end and probably has very little quality in terms of delivery. Jeremy, as right now on the call, being the only one outside of the States, is remote work different for you?
Yeah, before most of the companies that I worked with, like they were already spread across. Like there'd be an office in Toronto, an office in Boston, an office in LA. So I was already kind of used to having those type of conversations. But as you said, like kind of conference calls, dial in on the phone, very, very, very low end. I think what happened over the past little while, especially in 2021, I found a lot easier for me as a coach, agile transformation, all that I can easily go on Teams or Zoom. And as we go through stuff, I can share a link right away saying, hey guys, here, take a look at this. I can share information right away. No different than kind of pop my head up on the desk where everyone's around saying, hey, take a look at this. So that I found a lot more, especially in my current position, where they're using an offshore model and they're distributed all over the place. Where if I were to compare previous projects where they had a distributed model, that like the productivity I'm seeing now is way better than what it was just using kind of those conference calls. I think it's to the point where you had that outlier, that electron kind of spinning around. I think that for me is gone. I think everyone's starting to see that, yeah, we should be able to all work together. It's no different. It's just we're all sitting in a different spot, not across from each other. They're using the technology to get to what they need.
John, what have you seen in 2021 that has been different and really works well for you?
When I teach classes, I've introduced games. Well, they're all virtual now. So when I teach classes, I've added more gamification of those things, puzzles, and solve those in the class in real time with the students. That's an engagement mechanism besides facility, not just sit here, go through a bunch of PowerPoints. Some kind of mechanism we went through this stuff. Do you really understand it? Here's some puzzles. You have to understand it to solve the puzzle. The company's work I've been doing mostly, even before 2021, the teams were all over the world. They did go into offices, but they were all over the world. Manufacturing might be in Mexico. One of the mechanical design engineer might be in Poland. The electronics people would be in Germany or something like that. So it's not altogether different. The only difference is now, instead of them being actually in an office, they are they're largely at their home too. The exception of some of the engineers, which this is the part that I think might be difficult, even as you guys have noted. Distributing the team seems to be okay. Getting the work done, it's easy to communicate. If you're an engineer and you're working in a team with other engineers, I'm not sure these tools are perfect for those impromptu puzzles and collaborations and opportunities that you see together and can just instantly start digging on without having to go through who's on teams, can I get to them now, kind of sort of thing. So we're better then, but I'm not sure we're exactly where we want to be for sure.
So perhaps my sort of soliloquy up front is that 2021 really is just a variant of 2020, and that we really haven't progressed a huge amount, because the big shock to the system was back in 2020, and now we're just honing the edge.
I said I wouldn't disagree with that. I'd say you're probably right.
I think the big thing I saw in 2021 is that in 2020, people were doing things to kind of fill the gap. And in 2021, I saw organizations solidify, not all of them, obviously, but many of them solidify a remote work. So one of my friends, her company went entirely remote. They have a small headquarters for particular meetings they might have on occasion, but they made that decision. A lot of other people I know and a lot of other professionals, their organization went entirely remote. And so I think that that's probably the most significant part, was that in 2020, people were like, okay, we're going to do this for now. And in 2021, some organizations decided, no, we're going to change forever in this way. But forever, I put quotes around that. As an agilist, we need to be able to adapt at any moment, right? So it's like forever until the next thing. So
Exogenous shock, yeah, another external shock that brings us to next change.
Well, the next change, right? Everybody will be back in the office.
I'm not looking forward to that personally.
Well, John sort of hit on an interesting point about why people might end up wanting to come back into the office someday. It's this idea of less asynchronicity and more synchronicity. Being able to solve problems with people in the same space. That's still, I tend to agree with John. It's a problem that has not been figured out, particularly in environments where you're dealing with physical hardware, with physical actual things that people touch. Yeah. The idea that gee, so-and-so is on site today. Well, what does that even mean? They're on site, but the rest of the team that's going to try and help solve a problem is all distributed around the rest of the world trying to help figure things out. That's really hard. That's really a tough nut to crack.
I've been part of 7 patents, and every one of those had a lot of the interaction you just described. Mm-hmm. It's somebody with a conundrum. It's a what if moment. And a lot of times it wasn't even in the lab, but it was people, for example, a significant number of those, I can recall 3 of them at least, had origins. I'm not a smoker. Okay. But some of the team members were, and I live in North Carolina, and the weather is often really nice. And they would go outside and we would be working in the lab on some thing, right? Some project or product. And I'd go out there with them, either because they had something they were chewing on and I wanted to chew on it with them, or I had an idea that we needed to kind of kick around. And some interesting things come out of those conversations. And I'm not sure that works exactly the same way virtually.
Well, yeah. Well, to your point, happenstance is what I would kind of talk about versus, you know what I mean? Like these just naturally organic happenstances.
Serendipity.
There's a lot. Yeah, serendipity. There's a lot of brain science actually behind that. Like you go, like my wife went, she's going for a master's in counseling right now. And so they talk a lot about, connecting the left, right part of your brain for healing and stuff, and going on walks and stuff like that is part of it. It connects new synapses, new options in your brain. And that's what they do a lot with like healing. It's called MDR therapy. And so I'm only pointing that out because I think it's that you have to have those when you schedule that appointment. You know what I mean? Like we schedule a meeting to do our creative work. It's like, good luck with that.
Yeah. Like meetings are by definition, effective meetings are by definition focused on an objective. Here is my agenda. If you don't have an agenda, I'm like, what are we here for?
It's like asking a musician, hey, write a great song right now. I can do the repetition of writing the song, but it's like, do it right now. It's like, oh, okay. Here's something.
It reminds me of, through IT technology stuff, things have been come from a point of like centralized computing to decentralized computing. And just in my career of, I don't know, I'll say 25 plus years, I've seen it be like, oh, we need to centralize things. Oh, we need to decentralize things. And actually the cloud is a version of centralization, even though it occurs like it's decentralized. But when stuff isn't on your computer, that's not decentralized. It's in the cloud, then it's centralized in the cloud. Yep. And I kind of feel like the remote co-location thing is going to do the same. So people are going to say, oh, well, this remote thing is really great. And then they're like, man, we really miss that like ad hoc collaborative thing. And then there's going to be a pull for doing that. I think that my hope is that there'll be flexibility. And I think the one thing that people really appreciate is, being able to, be home and work from home when you've got that, repair person coming in, or there's something else you have going on, or maybe, you don't feel well, so you don't show up at work, which I've been promoting for decades now. I've literally told people who came into work, who work for me, you need to go home. You're like not well and don't get the rest of us sick. And people are like, oh, well, I'm not that sick. And I'm like, well, you're sick enough that I don't want to be near you. And now there's like an appreciation for that. There should have been a decade ago. I mean, seriously, there's this whole, I had a flu one time and I was working on a consulting engagement, subcontracting to another person. And I called her up like the night before and I was running a fever. I said, I can't come in. And she's like, what do you mean? She's like, it's a kickoff and you're leading the project. And I'm like, I'm not driving in. And she's like, well, we can't do that. I'm like, well, I have a fever. I'm not getting in a car and putting my life at risk and getting other people sick. I'm running a fever. Like, it's not like I have sniffles. Like, I am sick. I have the flu. And she literally, it was like a conversation. She kept coming back to it. And she's like, well, I have children. I can't be sick. I'm like, that's nice. I'm not coming. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. And it was funny because I almost like, I want to write an article about that. And like, can you imagine today that conversation? And why is it? Why does it take a pandemic for people to get that? Like, this is not about work ethic. Like, I said to her, I'll do the meeting virtually, but honestly, when you're running a fever, you can't think. I know me personally, my mental processes don't work when I'm running a temperature. I don't think most people do, but it's, hopefully things will shift where, I'm feeling under the weather today. I'm going to work, but I'm not going to come into the office. That should be permissible forever.
I think this COVID made that possible. But you have to, in the past, you have to look at it from, I don't know, places you work, but in general, you're given N number of vacation days with maybe 5 extra personal days, which are supposed to account for you being ill, which means maybe you have N plus something for that time off. And if you have a mild inconvenience, something that could be something devastating to somebody else, and taking that time off means you're taking one of those precious days.
Yeah,
You're allowed to go walk in the woods or hike or go to the beach or sit around and do nothing. Then you're kind of feel compelled. Well, I'm feeling great, but I'm feeling good, not good enough to lose a vacation day or a day off. So I'm going to come in anyway, even if it's not work ethic. It's those other things. And I think corporate cultures are the things that kind of
rules
sets that stage a little bit. Yeah, and rules.
Yeah. Well,
and
I don't
agree
think
with you
that's
on that.
culture, by the way. I think it is just rules. It is enforced behaviors, which then become culture, perhaps. And very frankly, that hasn't changed. And most HR organizations have not rewritten their policies. And so, I mean, it's time off, and you're taking time off. We don't care that you have COVID.
You might find this story interesting. I once worked at a place where they were trying to figure out doing the planning for the next year. They were trying to figure out the number of hours they had available in the talent pool they had, right? We have N number of people. We have some number of hours that we have available to do whatever project work we're going to work through. And they were using 2,000 hours as their reference number for the population. And this company is a big company, and most of the people there had, 5, 10, 20 years of experience. And they were not getting 2 weeks of vacation. They were more like, 5, maybe 7. Some people even had 20 plus years. And so I say to them, why are we using 2,000 hours when most of our people are probably in more like, another 2 weeks on top of that? And the response was, I work lots of overtime hours. I'm thinking everybody that works here works these kind of hours too. In my mind, I'm thinking, you're an executive here. Many of these people, you want to call this a career. This is really a job. They're not going anywhere up the ladder. So you're conflating some kind of work ethic with, I don't know, you're perversing work ethic in some non-helpful way.
I know most people have to wrap relatively soon here. So in a nutshell, are there things from 2021, it's deja vu all over again, 2021 that we want to keep? Jeremy Berriault, why don't you start?
I think to keep right now, like I'm using Team, Slack, you name the communication tool. And like the virtual whiteboards, like I created for a couple teams a virtual big room using whiteboards and Teams, and it's working out really well for them. It took them a while to get used to it, but in the end, it helped with a lot of kind of putting stickies on walls and stuff like that, and for everyone to see what's going on to help out and share ideas.
I think what's happened in 2021, we were just talking about it. If you're sick, don't go into the office. I mean, it's kind of sad to even have to say that, but I think that worked really well. I think virtual training. I mean, maybe I have like a little bit of a skin in the game here because I've had to travel all over to train. But I think a lot of organizations are like, having somebody on site to train. I'm not sure that buys us more, because you actually have to pay for that trainer to travel. You have to have a location for them to train. The other thing about online training is you can take, instead of doing like a 2 or 3 day class where it's all day, what I provide to my clients is I say, let's do 4 hours or 3 hours over the course of a number of days. So you can just have let's do a class Wednesday morning, 9 to 12 for 3 weeks in a row. I can do that. I wouldn't do that if I was traveling there, because I'm not going to travel every week for a 3-hour class. And so I think virtual training is something that people should consider here to stay. At least some training that works well virtually. There are definitely exceptions to that.
I would agree with that. Susan. In fact, I just did some for a healthcare company, a software testing class that was a 4-hour at their convenience. And it wasn't so much a travel thing, although that was a little bit of it, but it was more of a convenience in general. But you had to find a way to kick up the engagement. I think a lot of the tools are coming along really well. For example, Teams is a great place to share things. I have file structures for artifacts and action items and things like that that I'm with my team members. OneNote also is a good tool to kind of share that, which kind of I keep track of the meeting notes and that, and action item lists on a shared drive, so everybody knows where the action item list is in, and that's easily fixed by other folks. I think all these things, we're just going to become more proficient at how to work not at the same room, even though we've been doing this really for decades. Some of our team members have been off-site or some parts of our team are in another part of the world. I think we're now refining the point, or as Tom said earlier, something akin to that, on how we do this. I don't think we go backwards from here. I would be compelled not to go back into an office all the time. But what I do is there are times when you do need to be in an office, and I schedule those times with those folks in the office for collaborative sessions on maybe open-ended items that are not the kind of thing you put into a meeting agenda.
Mr. Rush, and then we'll let Mr. Willets bring us out, and then we'll quickly go around and get contact information to people. So, Kevin, why don't you?
Yeah, I would agree with what they're all talking about. Right? There's fundamentally, I think there's the shift that we need to continue to explore. I think we just need to experiment with it. Like, I'm not convinced it's going to go one way or the other. I'm convinced it'll go both. If I had to guess, like a crystal ball. Meaning, I think there's going to be people, small startups that double down and go into the office and we'll eat some people's lunch. And I think there'll also be, larger companies that will continue to move towards a larger vision of, what could asynchronous, look like. WordPress, right? Who's been doing it forever. Like he had Matt Mullenweg. He did a great article halfway through it, and they've been doing it for a while, kind of like the 5 levels. And as you kind of go up, it goes from, basically just physical location, non-deliberate action, meaning like if it happens remote, we'll let it happen. 2, recreating the office online. 3, adapting the medium. 4, asynchronous communication, and nirvana. And they've said we've never touched nirvana, even though they're trying to, but they figured out asynchronous communication. I think that's the one thing I think we're going to keep from 2020, 21, the deja vu, the matrix we're caught in, is that we're going to figure out how to do more asynchronous communication better with the toolings that we have. They're going to get better. Our trainings, I love that. I agree with that. That's been working. It's also completely retooling our trainings, what I think John touched on earlier, as far as these got to be puzzles. This can't, I can just send you a video of the best speakers in the world. Why am I sending you a talking head or making you listen to me? It's got to be solving.
Super. By the way, they haven't touched Nirvana. Well, between Jeremy and John, I think they could probably play Nirvana.
Nirvana. Sorry. No.
Smells Like Teen Spirit is just 4 chords in a verse, my man.
Oh my God, yes, thank you. I mean, okay, I get the aggression, I get the rage, I get the It's not even that. It's not like Metallica, it's apathy. No.
All right. Okay, Jeremy, take us home on this topic.
Sure. I don't know that I have much to add. I think we had some really great ideas so far. I think just to put a fine point on it, remote work is here to stay. The challenge is for us and the people we work with to figure out how to get better at getting better at it. There's lots of opportunity there, whether it's to get better as agile teams, whether it's to get better as companies, whether it's to get better at building culture with people that are scattered all around the world. And I think, the folks in our positions have a really good opportunity to be at the forefront of that.
we're going to have to wrap on this one, and we'll come back perhaps this afternoon to those of you who can and talk about futures. I know not all of us might be able to make it. Susan, how would people get in touch with you?
You can email me, Parente at S as in Sam, the number 3-tec.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Susan Parente. You will find me in the DC area if you find me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to connect on this topic or anything agile related. Remember, I'm not a scrumdimentalist.
Amen. Mr. Berriault, how can people continue the conversation?
They can get a hold of me through email as well at jberriault@berriaultassociates.com, and on LinkedIn, the only Jeremy Berriault in Toronto. I think I'm the only Jeremy Berriault on LinkedIn, period. So you'll be able to find me.
Mr. Rush.
Yeah, so best place to connect with me is kind of LinkedIn. You also can email me, and I'm on Twitter. I'm on most social media platforms under handle KEZRUSH, Kezrush, the childhood nickname. It's kind of stuck. So
cool. We will have all that contact information. So, Mr. Willets, and then we'll let Jon take us out. So, Jeremy?
Yeah. LinkedIn, you can find me, Jeremy Willets. I don't know if there are other Jeremy Willets on LinkedIn, but I think I'm one of them. You can also find me at my website, jeremywillets.com, and I think there's a way to engage with me through there too.
Super. Mr. Quigley.
Hey, I'm on LinkedIn at Jon M Quigley, or you can email me, john.quigley@valuetransform.com.
Super. Thank you. And it's, all of you have contributed not only to the podcast, the blog, other wonderful things that we're doing, but as I was walking the dog this morning, I was reflecting that every one of you have attributes that I am personally trying to emulate. So I want to be a chimera of all of y'all. And, just because there are so many cool things in the world and you help me see them all. So until we look again into the future, and I think we're going to try to do a little bit of that in the next episode, and hopefully, we'll be able to say what 2022 will be like, and perhaps where we really want it to go. Aspirational, probably. So again, thank you, and I know lots of you have to run. Thank you for sticking with me through the early technical issues this morning.
If process improvement is a never-ending journey, why do so many people ask, are we there yet?